Homeless. Those two words can send shivers up your spine. Yet every day we see about people that are homeless, living on the streets, families, children. Our guest today knows what that is like. Dr. Brian Sleeth and his wife and children found themselves to be homeless. He understands what loss of dignity and a sense of self-worth is like. As a result of that, he is pursuing his life purpose by helping others find self-sufficiency, dignity by finding work and employment. You do not want to miss how God was able to use that season in his life to help so many others find restoration. I first met Dr. Brian Sleeth over a cup of coffee. I'd called him and said I'd love to get together with you because I had read of his accomplishments, things that he had done in his life, and I was so impressed with the creative way that he approached business and ministry that I sat down and said, I want to hear more about that. Why don't you just kind of jump in with your early life, your faith, how your family was, and what your little Brian was like, and how that shaped your adult life.
As a child, I grew up in a sort of a Christian household, and I mean, we would go to church maybe once a quarter, and it was kind of in the family. But I remember my first prayer was somewhere around 8 years old, and I just prayed, God, if you're out there, let me know. And then just, you know, a lot of things happened, and I just over the years self-identified as agnostic and really started, I guess, being more interested in finding some answers when I was about 16. God had put people in my life, like a girlfriend's mother, somebody I would work next to, a grandmother, and seeds were planted along the way. And so there got to be a point right when I was 19 where this one word, faith, just kept, you know, stirring in my head over and over again because I wanted answers to things. And so I went to this church called the Chapel on the Campus, on the LSU campus, and I actually went to impress a girl. And so it was the first time I'd heard the gospel just plainly presented, and in a quiet moment later that, you know, right after the service, by myself, I prayed to receive Christ when I was 19 years old in 1988.
And so did something happen in you, or, I mean, what changed?
When I became a Christian and I showed up that next Sunday, you know, by myself, then it was someone who had recognized me from one of my jobs, and that person said, well, tell me about yourself. And so we got together, and pretty much he started meeting with me over the next 2 years, he started discipling me.
So what led you to go into seminary?
I was in a small market, and in a small market you get to see young people coming up and burnt out people tumbling down. You know, I was like, well, doing the weather is great, but I'm not changing anybody's life because I'm telling them to grab an umbrella or it's going to be hot today, unless there's like tornadoes or something like that. So I wanted to change people's lives. Every night I would come home and ask my wife, you know, was that a good weathercast? Was that a good weathercast? Because we would have to load it up on a tape, and you just send tapes out like crazy.
Trying to find your ticket.
Yeah, you hope that something hits somewhere in a bigger market. I got no responses. But then when I said, okay, God, I feel like you want me to go to seminary, and then I prayed about it, and I felt that God wanted me to go to Reformed Theological Seminary in Jackson. And as soon as I said, okay, that's where we need to go, then after all this time of not getting a job offer, then I get an offer. When I turned down the third one, then I got a job offer from Jackson. And so I went to Jackson, and the original idea was to start churches. After I went through seminary, I was approved as a church planter with my denomination. And so I went to Maryland, Southern Maryland, about an hour south of Annapolis, and started a church there and stayed there for almost 10 years. Started on a search for, you know, where should I start a church, and long story short is that felt God calling me to the Detroit area, and things were rough. And then that was in September of 2008. Then here comes October, the recession.
Yeah.
And we're at one of the, you know, the ground
Worst
zero
places,
side, worst
yeah.
places to be
Yeah.
for the recession. What happens when finances get tight is missionaries start getting cut, giving starts getting cut, people lose jobs, and so a lot of assistant pastors were and missionaries were kind of the cannon fodder, and so that was what happened with us. And through that experience, we ended up losing our house and becoming.
And you're a husband,
I'm a husband, a father. I have 4 kids.
You had to be like, wait, God, I'm in ministry. Pastors don't end up homeless usually.
Right. And I was like, I was so sure that I was following your will, God. What happened? Why is this happening? Which kind of caused a little bit of PTSD, and I had my first panic attacks and dropped weight rapidly. We ended up tumbling back down south to my hometown, Baton Rouge, and 2 months later, after winding up here, my dad had to have surgery for stage 2 cancer.
So at the time, you couldn't really see that being homeless was a good thing, but it prompted you to get back here to be able to minister with your family, and that season prepared you for the ministry that he was actually calling you to.
Exactly. Well, being homeless, I definitely identify with the loss of dignity. And another thing is that I had to be comfortable being a spectacle of God's mercy. I hated it. I remember through bitterness, I clenched my teeth, driving with just tears, just saying, God, this sucks. If this is all it's going to be, then take me now. I hate this. A lot of things were burned into my character. Advocacy was burned into my character, a sense of urgency, understanding the emotions of being homeless.
How did you end up taking what you learned, and you're with Christian Outreach Center,
right,
which is funded by Purple Cow. It's just a marketing genius. I'm fascinated by the whole circle of the way that works. How have you been able to pull people to the other side because of where God took you or allowed you to go?
I started venturing into business a little bit, and we didn't want to leave Baton Rouge, and I was up for starting a church up in Council Bluffs, Iowa, right across from Omaha, Nebraska. And this opportunity with the Purple Cow and Christian Outreach came in between my first and my second interview up there, and I was getting offered the job, and so
perfect for you.
Yeah, and so I had
ministry, but it's business.
Right. So God had taken me and made me uniquely qualified, because when I first heard about this, I was like, come again, it does what? We figured out kind of what's the one thing that we're going to be doing well, and God just showed us that it was employment. Let's get at the root of this. Let's flip the whole list around, and let's teach them and help them to find work, and then everything else gets lifted. Our main flagship program is called Jobs for Life, and it's based out of North Carolina.
You've crafted a message that has engaged the community in a fresh way, with people shopping at Purple Cow to help support Christian Outreach Center. You've been real creative in the way you've reached people. So how do you encourage other people to use creativity, different ways to reach out to people and to have a fresh approach to ministry?
Social media, I believe, is really key.
Huge.
And I had to be drug kicking and screaming into it initially. It's a team of us. It's all of the great shots of the clothes are our managers, and the stories are usually mine, and then the ads are our marketing team, and it's a combination of all of us working together, and we try to have a fairly vigorous social media presence.
It's so easy to help Brian because he's got 2 great organizations that need our help and contribution. The Purple Cow, Thrifty Living, and the Christian Outreach Center are great ways to help people find that self-sufficiency Brian talked about. To find out more about that, go to lifeonpurpose.tv, and let's all get behind Brian and help many families find self-sufficiency.